Hello, this is a quick introduction to installing the Java development kit for people just getting started with the writing of Java software as a software developer and the corresponding integrated development environment, NetBeans. So let's get started. So here's Google, and I will start by just searching for the word Java and see what shows up. So here's java.com, which is an official site for the Java tools, but I will say it is more closely related to consumer tools versus developer tools. So the major developer of the core Java language for desktop environments is Oracle. And so down here under oracle.com/java, that's where we should find the main resources for Java as developers. So let's follow that link down. So here's the main site, oracle.com. I would not get any development tools from any non-trusted third-party groups to start with. So here's oracle.com Java, and then Java for developers right there. So follow that link. And then here is our page to download software. And unfortunately, clicking here does not get you to download the software you want. We instead drag down here a little bit. And here is Java SE. And we follow this link. SE stands for Standard Edition, and we're looking for the Standard Edition tools. So here's Java SE downloads, and notice there seems to be two options. Over here is the Java, it's called the JDK, Java Development Kit. This is everything you need to build Java except for what's called an integrated development environment. Now, some people have other choices, but for uniformity and everybody having a nice set of modern tools, I recommend instead to follow this set of links over here, which gives you the NetBeans with JDK 8, which is both the Java development kit and the NetBeans IDE, so that you can more easily start writing software. So following that link out, there's our main download page. Just at the top, I'll point out the Java Development Kit is currently in version 8. This is the patch number 101. Patch numbers will change more frequently. Hopefully they just represent improvements in security or features. When the major version changes, there can be significant changes in the language that might require some rethinking of how old software is written. Although for the most part, they tend to be backward compatible so that software written for JDK 8 will also work in JDK 9 and so on. So NetBeans has some versioning as well. The current version is 8.1. I recommend you getting the latest versions of whichever stable tools are available. So down below, here's a license agreement choice. You must accept the license agreement to continue, so we'll check that off. And then down here are the options for downloading. So you really need an Intel or AMD based desktop or laptop environment. 2 gigabytes of RAM is a minimum expectation. I would say you're better off to have more like 4 gigabytes of RAM or more. You really don't need a gaming console style system in order to develop software. The compiler and the IDEs are not total power hogs like a 3D video game might be. So a pretty good laptop or a pretty good desktop should work just fine. You will have poor experiences with things like Chromebooks or tablets for doing Java software development. One choice that we're really not following in this direction is the Android systems are almost entirely written in a version of Java, but that's not the version of Java that we're talking about here. So Oracle supports mainly the Java that runs on desktop systems, not things like Android phones and tablets. So for you to choose which IDE systems you want to use, there's the choices along the list down here. So starting from the bottom, because these are the most popular, in Windows you have two options. This is for 64-bit chipsets, and these are for 32-bit chipsets of Intel or AMD style. Here you have one choice for Mac because they've only been 64-bit for quite some time. And then Linux, again, you have the two choices for a 64 versus a 32-bit version of the installation. So I leave it as an exercise to you. You have to Google a little bit to see the steps to discover whether your Windows system is 64-bit or 32-bit. But any modestly new system will almost certainly be a 64-bit system, so this is not a bad bet, is to just follow the 64-bit and see if it installs. If it gives you an error, then I suppose that's a good time to go back and get the other one. Or you can spend a little time and learn how to discover what version of Windows you specifically have installed. So the same thing goes with Linux. Linux supports a variety of hardware. Again, these will only support the Intel/AMD style CPUs for development. And so if you have some other style of system, I think you will have to adjust what kind of hardware you're running on to get the same kind of experience that most people would have with software development. So the installation process after the download, I'm not going to download it myself because I've already downloaded it. This is running on a Mac. But in your case, you will download the corresponding tool, and then executable programs are run. They all need administrative rights to install the full set of tools. So you will have to grant those permissions. And I would take a moment to look at each of the options passed to you and make sure that it is not installing any third-party tools. In particular, there were some versions from Oracle that would install tools like ask.com into your browsers, which was a unfortunate time, but apparently those are no longer bundled with the tools. Once you finish the installation, oh, sorry, let me say one more thing. In the Linux environment, I think the best choice is to go, again, Google how these steps work. But essentially, your steps in the Linux world is to download the proper .sh file and then open what's called a terminal window. And in that terminal window, you sudo run these scripts. So you would type something like sudo and then just copy paste the name of the file in the folder where you downloaded it, and that should start the whole installation process. So when it's all done, you should have a Java development kit installed, and along with it, a NetBeans installed for you to use. So the last step in the installation phase at this point is to just verify a few things. One is to go look at the control panel, and then it is to actually start up NetBeans and see what we see. So on a Mac, I'm just going to start my control panel. So system preferences. And then what I notice is down here I have a Java panel choice in my case. And if I launch that, it says the Java control panel opens in a separate window. I believe the control panel will look pretty similar for everyone. This will take a moment. Okay, so here's the control panel. There are only a few things I wanted to point out and make sure that you had set on it. And in particular, so if you go to the Advanced tab and then scroll down to the bottom of the options there, under Miscellaneous, I want to make sure that you don't have these options installed. So suppress sponsor offers when installing or updating Java. I'm sure none of you are interested in extra tools that you didn't really want installed in places that you probably have to figure out how to remove later and don't really know why they got there. So make sure that is checked off, the suppress sponsor offers when installing or updating Java in your control panel. I think that's the major thing that I just would want to make sure you double check is selected before using Java in any significant way. And that is it for that step, so okay there. And then the next step is to go ahead and run NetBeans. So the different tools will install it in different ways. On a Mac, the easy thing is to type command space and simply type NetBeans. In my case, I have a few versions, but there's NetBeans 8.1. And if I select that, here is my NetBeans in full screen mode. And so here, if I do a NetBeans and then about NetBeans, I see I have the version 8.1 for the versions of the IDE, the Integrated Development Environment. And for Java, I have 1.801, and that's just great. The last step, just to verify that everything's working inside of NetBeans, is to attempt to create a new project. So here I scroll up to the menu and File, New Project, and then under the Choose Project, I went to Samples and then Java, and then Anagram Game, and Next there. And just choose the default project name, Anagram Game. Don't bother changing the name if whatever shows up there, and then Finish. I just introduced an application, not written by me, obviously, it's just an example. And I just want to see that my IDE can go ahead and do the basic things without worrying too much about the details. In particular, I should be able to run the game or run the software that I just have set up here. That's this green arrow. I hit that and wait a moment. And so here is the game running like that, and I can try to guess words, and it says that I have not guessed it right. I'm not here to win the game. Just want to prove that the anagram can run, so I close that. Scroll back to my full screen version of NetBeans in this case, and that's it. So I just installed the JDK. I started my NetBeans IDE and started a very standard set of game infrastructure just to see that what I used works without turning anything or dialing any knobs. And that's a very good idea when you're first installing software, is just make sure it works before you tweak it. Because if it doesn't work, you're now wondering kind of what went wrong. So that's a great principle to start, and slow and steady wins the race. So hopefully at this point we all have a steady version of the JDK and NetBeans to work with. That's it.